Hello friends and enemies, welcome to or back to Happy For Now. It's me, Isabel, here with your Romancelandia Monthly / Mini version. I don't know. I wanted to talk about this. This popped off at the end of May as I was traveling in that last vlog you watched. And because of that, I have not had time to film this. And I was like, well, knock on wood, it's been really quiet. So let's just do a little mini update so y'all can learn about what's happening. You may or may not have seen around the end of May, some things popped off on the old Twitter, as I'm still forever going to call it, around the RWA, which is the Romance Writers of America group. If you aren't aware, which some of you may not be, one of the things that started Romancelandia Monthly was the RWA. It was this event that happened in 2019. I was part of the group that founded and formed Romance Sparks Joy with Courtney Milan that summer, because of what happened with the Ritas for the first time ever. Literally the first time ever. So we'll talk about it in a minute. I'm going to give you some brief timelines and overviews now, and then we'll talk about the bankruptcy filing and what I think is happening here, and just how the RWA has continued to be the shadiest organization ever. So the RWA stands for the Romance Writers of America. This is a huge association, well, used to be, that was filled with authors who have been traditionally published, have been publishing a long time, and all these things. It originally was founded by a woman named Vivian Stevens, who is key and instrumental to the history of romance books in America especially, and a Black woman, who was later ousted from the RWA itself and also erased from their history, which they only recently kind of brought her back because they started talking about the Vivians as like a new award thing to do. And I do need to note that this Vivian Stevens, as far as I know, is still alive. They act like this woman is dead. She is not dead. But she was instrumental in the 80s and 90s romance boom and what we saw at Harlequin and various imprints of that time. I will have links below for you if you want to know more about that. Like there's so much. Vivian is a legend though, okay? And I have nothing but respect for her and what she did, and a lot of issues in this organization, in my opinion, point back to the original founding's handling of Vivian and how they basically kicked her out and erased her from the history of the organization. So to catch you up to speed on the bankruptcy, I need to give you a as brief as I can, timeline of 2019 and what happened. In July 2019, we had our first winners in multiple categories featuring authors of color. 2019, y'all, 2019. And we're all on different journeys for reading diversely and different things from what we ourselves are. And I understand that, but it's still just wild to me that 2019 was the first year. So Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan, Bad Blood by M. Malone, and My So-Called Bollywood Life by Nisha Sharma all won that year. And this led to the founding of a group I used to be a part of that used to be active. We are no longer active. And that is Romance Sparks Joy. Courtney Milan helped found this group. We read books by underrepresented authors, including these 3 Rita winners. That was fantastic. We've given money back to writers and bookish space, helping people get books by underrepresented authors and all kinds of things. That we ran through 2021-ish? I can't remember. Anyways, we were a big part of what happened in this. So the thing I'm going to link to you with the timeline mentions Romance Sparks Joy, which is why I mentioned with full transparency, I was part of that group and I was one of the admins for it. So then we fast forward to December 2019, around the 23rd, Courtney Milan is emailed a statement from the RWA that she has an ethics complaint against her and needs to step down and all this stuff. Well, this comes about because Courtney criticized, I think, 1 or 2 different books on Twitter, on her personal social media platforms, because of issues with them, having racism and other things in them. And those authors decided to file ethics complaints against Courtney because they decided that was what was happening, and claiming that she was ruining their careers. And I just need everyone to note, Courtney Milan, if you know nothing about, one thing you must know is, of course this is a pen name, but she clerked under Supreme Court justices. She has a law degree. She can and will fight back. Whether you agree with it or not, she can and will fight back, and she can and will dissect what you're telling her is the case and turn around to figure out how that is not the case. Love it or hate it, you know, it is a thing. Damon Suede, who was involved in this investigation and things happening behind the scenes with this as well, and definitely had a lot of bad things come out about him during this. At one point, he was the president-elect at the RWA. And I'm just going to say that there's a lot of bad news about Damon out there on the internet. You can go seek it out, but it is not a good time. But people basically said that Damon made them feel like they had to vote against Courtney, even if they didn't agree, because it felt like he was lobbying for this decision to come. And then we quickly learn after all this that the RWA's staff has been filtering out ethics complaints. So not all of them were even being delivered to Courtney's desk or anyone. Like, they were just kind of getting lost in this sea of filtering. And then we very, very quickly, as this all kicks off, like, even though it was a holiday season, it was a fire. We quickly see people stepping down, people rejecting their entries to the Ritas. They want to be withdrawn from the award ceremony. They want their money back from the fund. Like, they have to pay to get nominated. People are, like, stepping away from the RWA, like, extremely quickly. Especially because as all of this is happening, like, pretty early on, we find out that there is a clause in the, like, terms of being in the RWA and stuff about your personal social media not being, like, your personal social media is your personal social media, and what you say there cannot be held against you in the RWA. But that's what they're doing to Courtney. So that, again, big issues here. So yeah, that's kind of where we were by, like, early January of 2020 then. So this is pre-lockdown even, y'all. So let's also take note real quick here. Some other things to know about the RWA. There's been issues long before this happened. Again, the way they handled Vivian Stevens and basically erased her until it was convenient to bring her back. The fact that there were notorious debates on the different author forums for the RWA around whether or not queer books counted as a HEA, aka the requirement for a romance book. Could a Why Choose book count? Does that actually count? Is that really like, very judgmental and shitty arguments about whose HEA was valid and whose wasn't. And if you come to my channel, there's one thing you should know, and my opinion is that everyone deserves their HEA or HFN. So happily ever after or happy for now. And everyone deserves to be reflected back in romance. So I think this is also part of where we see more and more of the divide between the romance community in and of itself. We have a subset that really wants it to stay the same and are pushing back at the idea of any changes. And then we have a subset of us who are joyful to read about others falling in love that do not look like us or reflect us. So that's the thing. But yeah, the RWA has had issues before around racism and homophobia and all kinds of things prior to this situation. And that's the other part where it's just kind of not surprising to watch all this unfold, right? You have a organization that is founded and based around some of these systemic issues, and you're not going to fight them back appropriately. I just think there's no winning and there's no coming out of this ahead. So all of this leads to their downfall here and where we are today in 2024. Basically, the RWA went from, I think, tens of thousands of members possibly to 2,000 or less. And the RWA hosts a big conference every year for their writers. And there's a day where, like, you can come in as a reader and get books signed and stuff, which is really cool. And because of that, of course, they have contracts with hotels around the US to host these. And when your membership dwindles to 90% of what it was, let's say probably 80 to 90% of what it was, because many people have let their membership lapse. I don't know a lot of authors that are active, and if they are, I'm concerned as to why they've stayed, I guess. So they have all these contracts to host these massive conventions they put on, and they can't fulfill those contracts anymore because they do not have the membership to pay for it. That is why we are here now with this bankruptcy filing. And I think the biggest reason I want to talk about this is I think it is absolutely absurd that the RWA in their bankruptcy filing claimed DEI issues and Courtney Milan basically as a scapegoat for what happened, when literally they just had to take accountability and show that they could pivot. And it's very apparent to me that everyone in leadership at the time when this all happened in the RWA had no ability to take accountability or pivot or take the correct actions to fix this, because people came in after and tried and they couldn't, because the members that stayed have no interest in fixing these issues. They would rather watch it burn than try and fix the issues and make it better or be more inclusive of people. I think it's just bonkers to witness. I don't know if you told me in 2019, 2020 me that this is where we would be now. I definitely thought we'd have a more active romance writer association situation happening, but I don't think we do, that I'm aware of. And I totally understand why, because everyone's been so burned by the RWA and what happened here. I also will say, I think it's just real shitty to sit here and blame a woman of color for your failings, especially when other people have called out the issues within the organization prior to what happened with Courtney and after. For the most part, for me, right now, I'm just kind of like, this is where we're at, and that's fine. I honestly didn't know that I'd have to talk about the RWA again in the lifetime of my Romancelandias. But here we are discussing it. So yeah, that's what's going on. They filed bankruptcy, and we'll see what this means long term for them. I don't know that it means the full dissolution of the group, but at least a way for them to get out of these contracts with hotels. I would love to know down below your thoughts on this. Were you around in the romance community in 2019 when all of this unfolded? Or are you a newer member to the community of romance? I'd love to know in the comments. I would also love if you want to leave me your favorite heart emoji in the comments for this one. We'll do that. And otherwise, I'll have links to some stuff down below for you if you want to read like full timelines. You can go dig up my older Romancelandia. I'm not linking that. You can go find it where I talked about this. But yeah, you can do that if you would like, if you want like really in-depth details. But for now, that's what we got. I will talk to y'all in just a few days in my next video. Bye.
Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions, we'll get away. This is what